So good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining us today in this session, which is around how COVID is transforming our industry, our economy, and specifically today the job market. I have the great pleasure to have here with us one of our historical members, also a friend, I have to say, Davide Villa, CEO at JobCloud. Good morning, Davide.
Good morning, Carlo. Thank you for inviting me.
Thanks a lot for your time, and thanks a lot for sharing your insights, data, and thoughts around what's going to be the future of our economy, especially talking about the future of our work, which of course everybody's impacted right now. Do you mind to explain us a little bit about the company? I guess everybody knows, but maybe a little bit the business model of your company. How do you work?
Company is called the JobCloud. We accumulate 20 years of experience in the career and job search online industry. We own the #1 career sites in Switzerland, jobs.ch and JobUp. We manage 3 recruiting marketplaces. Every year we engage with 50,000 recruiters that uses our technology and services to recruit. We have 2 offices in Switzerland, one in Geneva and one in Zurich. We employ 200 employees, young digital skilled employees. And as we are owned 50-50 by Ringier and the TX Group, previously called the Tamedia, so we are part of the strongest online ecosystem in Switzerland. So we have a lot of opportunities to address job seekers and companies, independently from the fact if they are actively looking for jobs or not. In the context of this interview, I wanted again to thank you for inviting me. It's important that everybody understand that I cannot really predict the future. Right now, we are still sticking in the middle of a unique crisis. So I got data. I got even some data allowing us to compare the situation of the labor market in Switzerland with Germany, Austria. Ticino is again Sonderfall, special case in this context. But I wouldn't recommend anybody, or I recommend everybody to do not use any forward-looking statement I make to invest or do anything. I will state in full freedom things that I guess, okay, based on my even personal 20 years experience in the industry. But it's a very special situation.
Thank you very much, Davide. It's very clear for me what you just said. On the other side, again, I rely a lot also on your personal story, and of course, I mean, you're still very young, but at the same time, you've done a lot of experiences. Would you kindly also explain a little bit to the audience, which is connecting, and afterwards, as in this format, after 20 minutes, we will start receiving questions from the audience. But just to quickly about your personal story. So how did you become the CEO of JobCloud? What did you do before?
I moved, thank you for asking. It's always a little bit special to think about my 51 years. I was born in Italy, and I came to Switzerland when I was 12 in 81, moved to Ticino. It wasn't really easy, and at this point in time, I experienced a lot of even issues, you know, to really integrate myself coming from Tuscany here to Switzerland. But it worked very well. I studied in Ticino and then moved to Zurich, where I studied architecture. Later on to Lausanne, when I finished my architectural degree and where I studied information systems. And I've never been a really talented designer, but I've always been a mathematician. And because of that, I started working pretty soon in programming algorithms already in Zurich for the engineering chair of the Swiss Federal Institute of Technology. When I finished really in my study in 96, internet was booming. And with a couple of friends, we started spending our nights online, trying to gather know-how from the US. This kind of very, very interesting first digitalization wave. In this context, I created our first web agency, and Adecco asked us to help them to digitalize their business, talking about 99, and afterwards asked me to enter in their management team to further digitalize recruiting, permanent and temp, and it made me become the CEO of JobPilot, the CEO Eastern Europe and Central Europe of Monster. I launched the online recruiting business at Xing with the founder, Lars Sinerich. Then I moved to Switzerland. I joined the jobs.ch, and I was in the board as we sold the jobs.ch to Ringhienta Media. After a couple of years, I joined the company resulting from this transaction called the JobCloud, and I went through several positions: company development, business development, product management, and technology management position. I'm since the 1st of February 19 CEO of JobCloud.
Thank you very much. I think it's very clear that you have kind of a very long history both in the sector and in technology. You mentioned 96. There was a boom in the internet. I guess that from now on we're facing a next level of boom in digital and e-commerce society. But I guess everybody has in mind the very first starting question: how do you see the fit of our economy, especially with an angle of jobs? So which kind of data can you share with us, both in terms of company, if they're still seeking for people, and on the other side, which type and profile or sectors are really, let's say, and how are reacting?
Yeah, thank you for asking. As our career sites, career portals, and job search sites are aggregators, so we have a good insight about the recruiting market in Switzerland. So I will not refer to job postings paid or services paid at JobCloud, but much more on this old data that we gather, collect, and analyze on a regular basis. What happened with the lockdown is that we saw a sharp decline in number of open positions online, which reached a kind of 25% less job ads. Our main aggregator called Job Scout aggregated more than 210,000 job ads at this point in time, and it went down to 170,000 more or less pretty sharply. Our flagship jobs.ch experienced more or less the same. But we saw even within this special situation that the e-com business suddenly boomed, and we started having a lot of requests from e-com businesses, like some of the shareholders portals, Deal, Ricardo, and so on, and even other companies well known like Galaxus and so on. And on the temp side, so temporary agencies showed up with a lot of requests for temporary staff. A lot of people to be involved in customer services, customer service, customer happiness services, and logistics. So we really saw that. But overall, apart from this boom that we saw on the e-com side, almost I would say focusing on temporary jobs, the all permanent placement, the offers for permanent jobs declined sharply in all sectors. Now what we see is that the market is slightly recovering. What we see is that the public sector, healthcare sector, construction sector are almost strong in the context, still below the peak of beginning of February, which is I would say the point in time we use to benchmark what happened with Corona. Still below this point in time, beginning of February, but pretty strong. We see the whole tourism, travels, events industry, which really dropped by 50% in terms of offering, and And we see at the same time that the number of open positions to work for permanent placement companies sharply declined too. So it confirms that there is no real expectation from a labor market picking up pretty soon. We are possibly in a kind of a U scenario, not a V scenario. So if recovery, not necessarily in a couple of weeks. We see the manufacturing industry in between these two, I would say, clusters, which is a good signal in the context of Corona. I cannot really imagine real structural changes, but we know that some companies are investing to bring back some key pieces of the value chain that they relocated and delocated. So maybe it's an opportunity. We see that, as I say, the temporary is booming compared to permanent. So there are a lot of opportunities for temporary jobs right now. We see that there are more opportunities for skilled talent, experienced people, and less for unskilled people. There is a kind of situation that is not surprising. We are coming from a war for talent market, and companies did not forget on how tough it is to really identify these talents. Talents in many cases working in the digital sector or in the engineering sector. Okay. So they try to do everything to keep recruiting these talents. For younger professionals, I would say right now is tougher compared for professionals with at least 5 years work experience.
Usually we have 20 minutes chat from my side, but I receive a question that might be very much fitting, so I pick it up. It's coming from Yap. In the aftermath of COVID-19, will there be a major shift from the previous candidate-driven market to a more company-driven market? Will this have a major impact on compensation?
Okay, yeah, thank you for the question. So the impact on compensation, if I talk for Switzerland, as you know, there are a lot of agreements, okay, with the unions, and it doesn't necessarily mean that having more seekers compared to some months ago will have an impact on compensation. But for sure, what we see is that today more talented, skilled people are active seeking for a job, okay, compared to before. And for sure, it means that the balance between a company-driven and the talent-driven market will change slightly, is already changing slightly. We need to keep an eye on the unemployment numbers. You know, the SECO institutions are producing numbers. I think we will need to wait a little bit to see what's going on there. A lot of short-time work, okay, has been adopted in Switzerland, and in many cases until the end of September. So let's wait and see what happens there. I will be really cautious in stating anything about real structural changes right now. There are professions, there are jobs which became much more important in the context of COVID, like working in a store, okay, or working in the supply chain, working in logistics, working in the healthcare industry. A lot of jobs that were not necessarily well considered or well enough considered, I mean, showed up as showing the importance they have. Okay, these jobs have. So I mean, it's tough now to really predict anything on the wages salary side.
Concerning specifically when you talk about, I mean, allow me that I'm the president of Swiss E-Commerce Association, so I want to deep dive a little bit more in the topic. You mentioned that companies like Deal, Ricardo, Galaxus actually increased the number of search, and also you mentioned about qualified profile. And this is, for me, it's kind of straightforward. Especially, we know that there've been a situation in Switzerland where some e-commerce have been boomed so much that they didn't even have the possibility to deliver because Swiss Post at the beginning had problems. But my question now is more about the non-expected one, those that maybe didn't have e-commerce and digital for real as a topic in the company. I'm talking about manufacturing, maybe I'm talking about industries that in the past were a little bit less e-commerce driven. We know what happened with Migros, Coop, etc. in the food sector. Do you see also seeking of talent in digital e-commerce in more traditional non-digital e-commerce areas?
Honestly not. What I see is that the whole IT and digital related jobs, including e-com related jobs, as I said, are still in a declining situation, but still present. So I imagine that smaller businesses and medium-sized businesses are working with external providers like agencies or specialists or freelancers. There is a lot of know-how today around e-com. There are a lot of marketplaces allowing companies to open shops pretty fast, but receiving the support for logistics at the same time, which is possibly the toughest side. So I do not see now a kind of run to internalize e-com skills. If I look at manufacturing and this kind of industry, but for sure, I mean, this is what you see and know. I mean, it became clear even for small stores how important it is to be able to deliver and sell in a context like the one we faced.
And what about your own commerce and sales strategy? Like, how do you actually commercialize the services of JobCloud? Are you physically meeting, or it's
so we stopped, we have 7 channels. We have a telesales channel, we have field sales channel visiting customers, and we have an e-com channel which is pretty strong, and we are investing a lot in this channel. With the COVID showing up, I mean, but we decided pretty fast to send everybody work from home. So we stopped any customer visits. So we sell at phone. We support customers at phone, and on the e-com channels that we have. E-com declined sharply to go down in the weeks following really the lockdown by 40% less compared to the activities we had beginning of February, but recovers now pretty fast. As I said, we have been very fast in taking care about the health of our employees, and as we are a digital company, it was easy for us, okay, to really shift all operations from our offices in Zurich and Geneva at home, okay, including for people living in Germany or France. It's not been an issue at all.
And I mean, I guess you are, as you said at the beginning, basically in a way or another a tech company. So I guess you were quite already organized for the concept of smart working. But what do you think has happened in relation to this topic in Switzerland? How do you see that working on for the future?
I think, I mean, we were well equipped because, as you say, we are a digital company, and despite that, we had to think, and we are still thinking, and we are redesigning some of our processes, reviewing the way to organize inceptions meeting, workshops, these all events that requires interaction with the people. I think the companies should now invest and they should invest in acquiring some expertise, consultants, or maybe internalize this also to rethink the whole workplace and define the workplace in a new way. One of the 2 shareholders of JobCloud, Ringier, as well as the other, I mean, but both of them are really investing in this redesigning the workplace of tomorrow. If you consider what we experienced, it will have an impact rethinking the workplace will have an impact on everything. Will have an impact on the offices, the premises. Will have an impact on the square meters per head. Will have an impact on the infrastructure from an IT and security point of view, but will have an impact on the organization, on the communication style of a company. You can imagine that we add these kind of events, even if we were working all day long in the same offices, on the same premises. We had these events outside. Today to meet in an office is an event. Digitalization, and it's not an easy topic. I mean, have a look. I mean, it's exciting to see that you could organize such live interviews without any huge effort. And something that I believe I even myself I cannot really estimate is how far from our situation. I mean, Netcom or JobCloud, Ringier, TX Group. If it comes to, or with regards to digitalization and using these tools, how far are we from the real world? Because I hear from companies. Sorry, I hear about companies that they just started now, in experimenting video conferences and this kind of new ways of work.
And I have to say that moving forward from your thoughts, I also understand that some industries are even changing the services that they can offer. And I was astonished that I had personally to open a bank account right now, and apparently you cannot do it in any way for some banks without getting the contact with the person and a written document, paper signed, but then you cannot deliver it because they're not sure that you did it signed yourself. It was kind of funny, to be honest, to see during this COVID personally that some businesses, even large corporations, are not yet ready to be really digital, despite the fact they say they invest millions on digital.
Yes, but apart from now your role within network, about the potential of digital signatures, the potential around technology, and yes, I mean there is a huge opportunity out there. Companies want to invest in this kind of thing.
Just one of the few questions directly from my side, and then we open the digital floor to the participants. What about the process of recruiting? Do you think it is possible to recruit someone 100% digitally and maybe potentially not even see him or her in the office ever?
I believe yes, it is possible if it depends from the industry. Okay. If you take our digital industry, we are used to work even with freelancers around the world that we never met. It's not a problem at all. So in this context, if you need to hire somebody who will anyway to be in a physical contact with your customers, I mean, doesn't make any sense. But in both cases, you can really digitalize a huge part of the recruitment process. Yeah? And companies like JobCloud are offering the tools, to set up video interviews and to organize assessments online. So you can postpone the point in time of a personal contact pretty late in the process.
And concerning you as a manager and a company that you run, do you see any new business model that the COVID would allow you to perform or to benefit from? Coming from your part,
all our pay-per performance businesses, programmatic, so really highly digitalized services, is performing very well because it's the nature of the business. It's a pay-per-delivered performance model because we use artificial intelligence to optimize the investments. So it requires from the customer side a certain level of understanding, but it's growing faster than expected and is boosted by the crisis.
Good. So if you agree, all the participants, I would love to receive your questions now. I start, of course, with the one that we have already received. There is one specifically about biotech and infrastructure. where they say biotech and infrastructure are actually doing well, plus 30%. Is that the same for Switzerland? Do you have any data on that?
I don't have the segment in such a granular way. Biotech will not surprise me. They are within this bulk I mentioned before, healthcare. Now the plus 30% related to what? First week of February. And what do I state? It was always related to the first week of February, not to last year. The segment specific segment biotech, I don't get the numbers right now. Yeah, but in general terms, in Switzerland as well as in Germany as well as in Austria, if we compare the number of open positions now with the number of open positions last year, we are below. Okay, last year.
Then concerning the staffing agency, we have a question from Patrick. Davide, how do you think the market will change regarding staffing agencies specifically?
Patrick, ciao Patrick. Which staffing agencies, permanent or temporary staffing? Because it makes a kind of you would say huge difference. So let's start with temporary staffing. I mean, temporary staffing flexibility is important for both parties. Okay, for employers and employees. I still believe, as I believed before, that there is a huge potential for growth. Digitalization will make it easier to access the service for both parties. Permanent placement, the permanent placement industry is under pressure, in my humble opinion, because of the digitalization, because of the all changes and shifts, if it comes to accessing personal data, if it comes to contacting people, staying in touch with people. So digitalization is making it much easier on the sourcing side. Companies like JobCloud offering tools which can really automatically identify and address people. On the other hand, the process, okay, completely digitalized. The real skilled people in the companies can easily access. So I see that maybe it will be challenging for permanent placement agencies and much less for temporary staffing.
Okay. Thank you very much. And on the other side, we've seen that very often Switzerland is considered to be an innovation hub. In very many statistics, we see that Switzerland is always leading the innovation statistics of the world. Of course, it depends exactly how they are created, but we know that companies like Google, like Microsoft, like IBM, they're actually based and they have their research center in the Swiss-German part. We also have some very good company here down in Ticino. What do you think in terms of attractiveness for companies to locate in Switzerland and hire people here, especially when you mentioned that highly qualified people is what people are seeking? Do you think the way that Switzerland has reacted economically can, in a way or another, benefit for the future the possibility to attract innovative companies?
So for sure, Switzerland is a very innovative country with regards to digitalization, and not only. And I think one of the key factors making Switzerland as attractive for real innovators is the school system, the quality of our school system. Then you have a lot of opportunities to deal and design ad hoc conditions to move your business from abroad to Switzerland. It's for sure attractive, and we see, as you say, I mean, you mentioned very well-known companies. We see even smaller companies in other areas moving to Switzerland. If you ask me, I think the key piece is really the school system, the level of skilled young professional that we are able to produce every year. And if you think about the future, the old initiatives that I know about, and some of them I'm even involved around training people, okay, for the future. Even in the context of this new mobile workplace, it's a small country investing in people a lot. Even all these initiatives, okay, to train people, private and public, are crucial to keep the competitiveness of Switzerland pretty high.
Do you think that the government should, in a way or another, and in which form, maybe support for the development of digital companies in Switzerland? Like, should incentivize or really finance either technology acquisitions or skills acquisitions and people acquisition, let's say, in skills?
I honestly, I'm not aware about what government is already doing. For me, again, there is this all investments around school system and training. I am impressed by the speed and the level of support that the Swiss government gave to all of us, okay, during the last weeks and the coming months. It makes us talk about a labor market in the kind of context we are, okay, which is tough, some cases, but not dramatical. Honestly, now in the context of COVID, I think that investments will be needed in new areas. Maybe the investments will be needed in other areas. It depends really from the structural changes that we will experience. You know, home working allows you to employ people abroad without having them crossing a border every day. It has implication on the fiscal side. It has implication on the transportation. It has implication on the local services. There are a lot of implications, and we will see what happens. So from what we see, a lot of people adopted, a lot of companies adopted this new smart working tools and approaches, and for sure some of them will stick to this kind of learnings they made. And this is something important. I mean, and you know, because we are working on some surveys together with you. So right now will be really interesting to really discover which are the learnings on both sides, employees and employers, to try to get a kind of better flavor about okay, investment needed and these kind of things.
Maybe to be mentioned for everybody, Davide just mentioned about the study that we are about to launch. We are going to launch a study around smart working and digital skills together. So thank you very much, Davide, for coming up with this idea and supporting us with that. We will publish the study as soon as possible, and for sure we will share data. We see that there are quite a lot of questions coming up. I'll try to select some of more scenario questions. Some are more related to JobCloud directly. I start with the one of Philip. We've been talking a lot about the recruiters, but also Philip Mather is asking how important are for JobCloud job-seeking people who place their CV on your site directly.
On jobs.ch, JobHub, JobScout, we offer these kind of features. Okay, you can not only upload your CV, but you can use the account to manage your all applications. For sure, it's important. But for us, what's more important is our ability to address people, okay, and provide them with the right job recommendation, and then they can apply. And in many cases, the seekers apply directly to the company. They do not have to register on our platform. How important are the seekers? The seekers are extremely important. Where are the seekers? The seekers are on our own career sites, offering job ads, company profiles, salary tools, a lot of services for them. The seekers are within the ecosystem of our shareholders, are reading 20 Minutes as well as Blick.ch. They are using Ricardo as well as DineDeal. So seekers are absolutely crucial. In your question, you mentioned the registration. The registration is important, but it's not as crucial as maybe for other businesses, because at JobCloud we offer even the B2B tools, recruiting tools. So the data related to the seekers still stays in our ecosystem, even if the seekers do not register.
So who are exactly your customers? So like if you should profile the different cluster of your customers, who do you have? in terms
So
of profile?
we have a very high penetration in Switzerland. We are the market leader. We have I would say almost all enterprises with more than 500 employees, almost. I mean, not all of them. We have a pretty high penetration in the mid-sized businesses segment, and a good penetration with a huge potential if it comes to companies with between 10 and 100 employees. We are on the B2B side. We are focusing on the German part of Switzerland and on the Romandie, the western part of Switzerland. We have customers using our platforms from Ticino. One of the key pieces, one of the specificities of JobCloud is that you don't have to pay to start a sourcing. You can post the job ads for free. You can have a company profile for free. So even if we are not from a sales and consultancy point of view active in Ticino, we have customers, they just first of all discover us because of the free service, and then they book paid services. We are counting, 30,000 companies hiring, and as I said, the 50,000 recruiters engage on a yearly basis.
Who hires in the company in Switzerland? Is the HR department, or is directly the functional, or let's say the people that they will then manage the skills and the person in the company? What is
still the key role sits in the HR department. The line managers, they are involved, but later on, if we really talk about the majority of the market. But we see new models and we see shifts from this approach to a much more direct approach between line managers and the job seekers, but it's still the minority of the cases.
So getting back to the discussion we had before when we talk about the need and importance of digital and e-commerce people, Francesca asked, I think that technicalities are not enough in new digital projects. Companies need also branding, exposure, change management, IT organization. What do you think about it and digital roles trends?
Thank you, Francesca. I do agree with you. I mean, technology is just supporting this whole change. And what I believe is that if I go through the list of the points you mentioned, and there are even more, I cannot imagine that companies can internalize these all skills, okay? And that all companies should think, in my humble opinion, about working in ecosystems. So leveraging on external partners as well as internal partners, mixing the traditional employment models, well-known, permanent temp. There are mixed models. There are a lot of skilled people able to become entrepreneur of themselves. But for sure, it's exactly what I said before. This new workplace that we need to design all together, and everybody will do is peaceful. It's a pretty complex project, and I think we take some years to get there. And then you, Carlo, you mentioned the bank account, how difficult it is to open a bank account. But can you imagine having somebody sitting at home, running a confidential discussion with a customer, and then having a wife jumping around? What does it mean? How do we manage this kind of thing? So it's pretty interesting.
Yeah, and I had quite a long discussion with the HR manager of a large corporation here in Ticino on fashion, and he told me, yeah, it's not only about the office or the processes, is also about what kind of tools you offer to the people to work. So don't only think personally, as I guess you know, I'm working since a while on setting up a co-working center, and what this person said to me was, don't only think to the space, think to the services too, and that's very much connected to what you said, to partners with others, because especially now, people will concentrate on their major core skills if they need, unfortunately, to reduce the cost of people, but they will need many more additional skills, and they need to find ways to partner externally. I think it is a very, very interesting view of what could happen. So in a way, personally, I think co-working spaces right now, they are philosophically offering what is needed, but then technically, due to the COVID health issue, right now for the physical part of the concept, they have big challenges. What do you think?
I think that we needed to rethink when, how often the physical contact is needed, because we have been able, thanks to COVID, to breach some rules, okay, and to do things online that we never expected. And I always believe that when a society starts thinking in a direction, I mean, at the beginning you're just scraping the surface, and I mean, and now working, learning, for at least for the whole office, okay, sector, third sector, which is the real added value of sitting together in a space. And I know your interest for this co-working space. I mean, you could set up the virtual co-working pack.
That's pretty much what is the philosophy thinking that I had with this very senior HR manager of this fashion company in Lugano. And what about challenges for the government? Because of course I understand that theoretically, well, listening you speaking, I guess you are in Lugano, but the company's it's formally in, well, it's the company is in Zurich, if am I right?
Yeah.
Is it? Where is it?
In Zurich and Geneva.
Ah, perfect. And on the other side, but you could be theoretically in this call seated in Milan, or I could be seated in Zurich or Berlin. Are we actually working for a Swiss company? Are we actually employed for a Swiss company? I guess there is quite a lot of challenging from a fiscal point of view that will be needed to face this for the future. What is your impression?
Well, my impression is business as usual, at least from what I see in Zurich and Geneva. The authorities have been fast. I'm aware about an agreement with the German authorities regarding the fiscal situation, but I'm aware because as a CEO, I know that we had these cases and this situation. I mean, employees asking us what happens now. But I expect from France, Italy, and Austria that, I mean, at the end of the day, we will have this kind of new agreements. Not sure if it's the first priority. Honestly, I believe that the economic situation is not stable at all. There is a certain risk or high risk for an economic downturn in the coming weeks and months. I would recommend everybody to be pragmatical right now and look for solutions working on the short term, but focusing really on this economy, making people working, companies working, the whole infrastructure working, to give even the economy and the society time to change from a structural point of view. Too many question marks right now.
I get the Rosario questions, which reconnects to what you mentioned before. You mentioned that companies are now bringing back part of their value supply chain back to Switzerland in this case. Do you believe that the future will be less global? What would be the impact on the labor market if this is something that you believe?
No, I don't believe that the future will be less global. I believe that the future can be, will be maybe differently global. The whole companies and even you with Netcom, you organized a couple of interviews to entrepreneurs who suffered about that, having key pieces of the value chain completely delocated or having no stocks at all, because I mean, we have learned at school how to work without a stock, because a stock is just money that you immobilize. So I mean, these all things could change and will change. But will the world be less global? No, I believe that the world will be even more global. I mean, the COVID illness is global. This is a pandemic. It's an example how global this whole thing is. But this is again, it's just my personal opinion. There are things that have been pieces of the value chain have been moved. Maybe this one come back, or some of them will come back, and other pieces will be moved. somewhere else. For sure, the whole digital industry didn't really suffer in terms of productivity, okay, because people had to work remote, because the whole digital industry is used to work and interact remotely, and maybe more companies will invest more in nearshoring these kind of services and bring back other pieces which are much more related to the manufacturing activities they have.
Yeah. You know that usually we always have our communities and events with business people, but I think it's very nice that we have here Steve, which I guess is a young guy at university, and he asked for a young Swiss now thinking about university choices and future career. What skills do you think talent should develop now to have more chances of a good career in the future?
I don't believe that it changed. I mean, that because of Corona, the whole picture changed, really. I mean, we suffer because we lack engineers, we lack healthcare people, we lack IT and digital specialists. And I don't feel that COVID changed a lot or changed anything. I think COVID made clearer that the healthcare system, as it is today, could land under pressure. So maybe even a good moment to rethink some of the policies to let the students start with some studies, okay, in medicine and so on, so to see what happens. But in general terms, I do not see now that there are really new areas showing up. Maybe an acceleration around the digitalization that will make the whole sector even more interesting, or maths, the whole data-related, security-related topics.
Yeah. And what about, in your opinion, entrepreneurships? Because, of course, we know that, I mean, I saw some statistic that in Switzerland, we are very innovative. Corporate invest a lot of innovation, but we have a lot of talents from abroad that are entrepreneur, but a little bit less national-born Swiss in terms of statistics compared to the other that are opening companies. What do you think about the future, especially, let's say, if people are losing jobs? Do you think that entrepreneurship will be something more developed?
But it depends on how do you define entrepreneurship. You can be an entrepreneur of yourself, or you can be an entrepreneur building a company. Now, apologize.
No problem.
This is my Italian DNA. So to build a company, you need cash. A real company, if you want to hire people and delegate, it's for sure challenging. Maybe now more than before. But if you are a skilled talent, and if you are motivated, and maybe if you just have a couple of friends and you want to be the entrepreneur of yourself or the entrepreneur of your group of friends, the situation will maybe boost this kind of development in the near future. But I will just recommend some cautious, some how do you say in English? If you are young and you want to become an entrepreneur, I mean, take time and really go and inform yourself what does it mean to be an entrepreneur from an administration point of view, from a legal point of view. So it's not as
personal point of view, I would say also. And you mentioned you need cash. You need cash for setting up a company. You are, of course, a CEO of a well-established company, but at the same time, and we live in a country where we do know, since the history of our country, that banks and private wealth is managed often from Switzerland. Do you think and believe that investors, both private or private equity, will move more into technology for the future?
Today, what I see is that there are some deals happening, at least in my industry, but just a few. A lot of opportunities showing up, but no run for investment. If I consider the really digital recruiting services. It depends now. I mean, if you own cash now, you have the ability to invest and buy. Maybe it makes sense to wait a little bit to understand what works and what doesn't work, so that you reduce the risk. Predictivity about business and economic development is pretty low.
And what about the intersection between HR tech and smart working? Do you see there any specific opportunity?
A lot of opportunities. I don't know, at the end of the day, we see that the whole, as we experience it, the whole reorganization of the work, the workspaces, the work process, HR played a key role. So HR has the opportunity to reposition the whole services that they deliver within a company to become a much more the platform coordinating these kind of things. And again, we are talking about people with expertise, people with experience, but people with family, people with some skills and other skills which are maybe hard to acquire. So even this new smart or mobile workplace will need to be agile or easily adapted to the personal situation you have in a company, and HR is the service in a company, is the department in a company which deals with this personal situation. So then technologies are coming, all of them together, because I mean, do you need a video system? Yes, you need a video system. You need it to work. You need it to organize conferences. You need it to talk with your customers. You need it to hire people. Now, how many of them do you need? Okay, so then whatever you need needs to be integrated, ideally. Okay, so there will be a boost. Right now, I believe that many companies have or did jump on solutions. Okay, not necessarily linking all these solutions together in a structured, intelligent way, even from an IT architectural point of view. It will happen in the coming months. Many decisions have been taken like that. Okay, what do you use for conference calls? And then I use the same. Okay, what do you use to share documents? And then I use the same. But I think companies should review some of the decisions made during the last weeks under pressure and under time pressure. In our case, again, we didn't have, from a technology point of view, to decide anything because we had already the whole tools, the whole architecture, but because we started investing 5 years ago heavily, okay, to create this kind of situation.
Of course. I think we'll have time for one or two last questions, and then again, thank you for your time and insights and sharing some practical advices. How to increase the confidence of Swiss companies in hiring in order to develop their digital business now? How to push these companies in innovation using new skilled employed? Companies fear losses, of course, and new always is scaring, especially now, where I guess that without having too much cash availability to change, it's even harder than before.
It's a very good point. Humans are scared about changes and transformation. So how to convince? I think that this kind of crisis is pushing companies to start new projects, and then the next point or the next critical question will not be how to convince them to invest more, but where are the people to make happen what they would like to do, and how and who can help companies really understanding what they should do, because I mean there are so many possible approaches to do everything, even e-com, if you stick to the simple apologize, but e-com or digital sales topic. You can own your shop, you can be on a marketplace, you can do all of them. And you can then link to your CRM, you can link to your ERP. So there are so many things that maybe are not needed, maybe yes. So it's pretty is pretty difficult for a company, not only to decide to invest, but afterwards to decide how to invest and then to find the right support. Okay, I mean the right level of expertise and consultancy. I don't feel that maybe more incentives are needed, but it could show up. So let's assume that companies, okay, would like now to invest more in digitalization, but they fear the losses. They have to be really careful with the cash. I think even our surveys should show us if it's the case, and then instead of creating programs for startups, so for new business creation of new businesses, maybe really creating new ways to finance digitalization of existing businesses. This whole dream of creating a new company and being successful, it happens. But I know much more traditional businesses and companies which became even more successful because invested in digitalizing what they were doing already.
Of course. And I guess that you also mentioned it in our survey. We will definitely deep dive into this topic in order to be able to give practical advices afterwards of what is happening, but also what could be done. One last question, and again, thank you for your time. You mentioned about people are going digitally, like they rush to go digitally, they select their tools, they're working on that. And of course, if they don't stop for a moment and reflect about it, maybe they will move forward with those tools, not the right one for the next 5 years. I was thinking a bit in an analogy, because we're talking here about jobs, about people that started their careers a bit unexpectedly doing something and have done it for many years. And maybe they're even good, but they don't necessarily like it. And this stop of COVID, I guess, gave the time to a lot of people to think about themselves and if they are happy about what they do. And I'm not sure, unfortunately, that a lot of people replied actually that they're very happy about what they're doing. Do you think there will be a shift of some people in completely different jobs? I'm even thinking about radical changes because of the time that they took during COVID.
I think that yes, it's possible, but I would not look on the younger professional side. I would take a look to the over 45, over 50, which were already struggling professionally, okay, and now they had the time, and maybe in some cases they know that they are active in an industry which will need years to recover, and if you are 52, 53, 55, and your industry will take years to pick up, I mean, what does it mean for you? So I believe yes. I will not really look and ask younger professionals, because I believe it's still the same. As I was young, I decided to study architecture because I was passionate about designing and engineering, and then I ended up in becoming CEO of JobCloud, and I'm passionate about what I'm doing. I didn't know at this point in time. I will look much more for the opinion and feeling of this segment. I would say 45 or maybe 50 and above. Even with regards to the entrepreneurship question you mentioned before.
Yeah.
But honestly, we do a lot for young people. So I have a son, he's 15 and a half, and he has a lot of support, when it comes to deciding about his future. But the friends I have with 45 and 50, who is supporting them? Where is the service of professional career coaching for this segment? Honestly, I don't notice it. I because of my job, I'm asked about, okay, what should I do? What could I do? But then the people need to go and look for the needed trainings, and this is something that maybe COVID and maybe even the economic crisis, okay, following COVID, will force authority to rethink, okay, how to manage that.
Thank you very much, Davide. It has been really a great pleasure to be with you. Thank you especially to all the participants. There were numerous during the hour and a lot of questions as well. So thanks for engagement. Really, thank you very much, Davide, for your time.
Thank you, Netcom. Thank you, Carlo. Thank you all involved people.
Thanks a lot.